Seat back, relax, and enjoy listening. The car slowed as they approached RK's house. SV, lost in her thoughts, didn't realize they had stopped. Even after a minute of parking, she didn't move. RK, noticing her stillness, stepped outside and opened her door, finally grabbing her attention. She had been staring out of the window, completely unaware of her surroundings. Before SV could say anything, seeing RK standing in front of her, holding the door open, he pointed to the left, making SV look at the house ahead. It loomed before them, large and imposing. SV stared at it, her stomach tightening with dread. This place, his world, wasn't hers. She didn't belong here, and the thought of stepping inside made her chest feel heavy. Understanding what was going on inside SV's mind, RK said gently, "You don't have to stay if you don't want to, but I made a promise to your mother. I'll look after you." SV swallowed hard, her throat tightening at the mention of her mother. The promise she had made weighed on her like a boulder. She wasn't ready for this, for any of it, but she had no choice. Without saying a word or looking at RK, SV carefully stepped out of the car as RK held the door for her. She moved in such a way that ensured not even an inch of her body brushed against his. The mere idea of his touch was unbearable. They walked up the steps together, but the emotional distance between them felt like miles. RK opened the door, and SV hesitated for a moment before stepping inside. The house was quiet, but the tension between them hung heavy in the air. SV felt a wave of unfamiliarity wash over her. This place, new and foreign, unfamiliar, wasn't hers, and more importantly, it was RK's. It felt like a prison. Just standing there made her feel as if she were losing everything. Her freedom, her sense of control, her very self. The house was quiet, but the tension between them was palpable. SV, standing just inside the doorway, felt completely overwhelmed. She hadn't even looked around yet. The weight of the situation was too much to process. Her life no longer felt like her own, and for the first time in years, SV felt utterly lost. As RK opened the door wider, she stood frozen, staring into the unfamiliar space ahead. Before she could gather herself, her legs weakened. Her body, drained and exhausted, gave way. It had only been 2 days since she was discharged from the ICU, and she hadn't fully recovered. The stress of the past few days, combined with barely eating, was catching up to her. She had ignored the doctor's warnings to avoid stress and take care of her health. She had endured it all for her mother, and in her anger hadn't realized the toll it was taking on her, but now she was starting to feel it. As SV took a step forward, her gown caught slightly, and she stumbled, her body too weak to keep balance. Just as she was about to collapse, RK instinctively reached out to catch her. For a brief moment, SV's world went black, but she forced herself to stay conscious. As soon as she realized RK was holding her, a surge of anger shot through her. "Stay away, Amar," she began, her voice shaky and weak, the room spinning around her. She could barely stand but pushed him away, her fury barely masking her exhaustion. "I don't need you, in any condition. Stay away from me. Don't you ever dare to touch me." Her legs faltered again, but this time she managed to grab hold of a nearby chair. Seeing this, RK, though instinctively moving to help her, stopped himself once she grasped the chair, believing she might not fall. He knew how much she despised his touch and didn't want to make the situation worse. SV, her vision blurry, glared at him. "Didn't I just tell you not to touch me?" But before she could finish, her body gave out entirely. This time, she collapsed, completely losing consciousness. RK rushed forward and caught her just before she hit the ground. Her body was burning with fever. She was burning up. RK felt his heart tighten with worry. She was so fragile, her health deteriorating fast. Without hesitation, he picked her up and carried her inside to a room, his worry outweighing her hatred of him. Quickly, RK called the doctor, his voice urgent. The doctor arrived shortly and examined SV thoroughly. She's severely dehydrated, malnourished, and under immense stress. It's no wonder her condition has worsened, the doctor said after a moment. She needs to be taken care of immediately. He administered an injection for fast relief and handed RK a prescription. Make sure she takes her medication after a proper meal. Her condition will only improve if she rests and avoids any further stress. RK nodded, watching the doctor leave before turning his attention back to SV, who lay unconscious on the bed. The weight of everything crashed down on him. This wasn't just about a promise anymore. Her health was fragile, and he couldn't ignore that. Sitting by her side, RK felt an unfamiliar sense of responsibility settle over him. He had to take care of her, no matter how much she hated him. She might not want his help, but right now, she had no choice, and neither did he.